Next on the Uncomfortable Podcast with Jeffrey Gabriel, we have domain name Shane Cultra. Come hear Shane's stories touching on being a stock trader, bartender, botanist, TV personality for a national TV show, domainer, marathon runner, a father, and maybe, just maybe, even a domain broker. Here, Shane and I talk about managing employees, motivating employees, selling domains, email deliverability, bad domain investments, the state of the domain industry, taking the big leap to do your own thing, and we both agreeing that the number one secret to both of our success is our support system at home, starting with our wives, our families, and then our friends and our colleagues. If you want to be a guest on the Uncomfortable Podcast, have an idea for an episode, or have some feedback, send us an email to buzz, B-U-Z-Z, @saw.com. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or anywhere else, please, at the very least, give us a like. It helps our rankings immensely. And as always, thanks for listening. Today on the Uncomfortable Podcast, you have Shane Cultra, better known as Domain Shane in the domain investing world. Shane is one of the founders of DSAD, DSAD.com, that puts out a daily list of domains at auction from auction houses from around the world. He has put out a list every single day since 2009 and has missed less than 10 in that period. Shane owned and ran a nursery and garden center for 28 years while he pursued his domain investing on the side. Shane started running at 40 years old and has run 35 plus marathons, 2 Ironmans, and is now pursuing 100-mile races. We're definitely going to talk about that. Shane is the original Get Uncomfortable. I guess I'm the plagiarizer. And as that has been his motto for over 30 years, and I can agree is mine as well. Shane retired from the nursery business in 2023 and is now pursuing domain investing, domain and brokerage, and his other hobbies full time. Welcome to the show, Shane. How you doing today?
Hey, Jeff. Hey, great. I'm glad you had me on. I've been watching it, and I was hoping someday I'd have the honor of coming on, so I appreciate you bringing me here today.
Yeah, I'm honored to have you here. I put on my Red Sox hat because I want to forget about the NFL season of 2023. I'm a Patriots fan, so pitchers and catchers for the Red Sox report in 2 days, so I thought I'd put this on as some lucky juju. This is my lucky Red Sox hat. I actually was wearing it. It looks a little weathered. I was wearing it when I sold sex.com. So it definitely has some miles on it. And and a little some when I used to make some calls.
It looks like a multi-million-dollar hat.
Yeah. I'd be like doodling on the insides and hoping for the best, when these are happening. So hopefully there's some positive juju here.
Yeah.
Anyways.
No, I have my lucky swag too.
So there you go. So I like to start with pretty much everybody on the show and find out about their business or their personal lives and things like that. So let's quickly go over, you in the planting business and then how you found domains, got in the domain business, and then how it kind of brought you here. And then we can kind of start talking about the industry and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people in the industry know my story, but I can say it quickly. I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. My family has a nursery business since 1865, and I worked doing that through high school, and my whole life. That's how I earned money, is working for my dad, doing that. But for 5 generations, everybody's done something else and then come back to it. We all do it. We all hate it. We go to college or go to war. I was actually the first generation not to go to war, which I'm very thankful of.
Okay.
But I definitely didn't want to go back in the nursery business. Like, I had unloaded enough trucks and known how hard a work it was. I wanted to do something, quote, better. So I went to college, University of Alabama, where my dad went to school. And I ended up doing really well at the USA Today. You remember USA Today paper? They had a stock picking contest that we did in a class. And I think I was top 10 in the country. And my professor said, hey, you're pretty good with numbers, and got me a job at the Board of Trade. Actually the Chicago Options Exchange in Chicago. So I left school and was a trader. I moved up from runner to pit to kind of doing the whole thing until I was one of those people in the pits with the hand signals doing that. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this the rest of my life. And long story short, during a Federal Reserve meeting, I held a position that my backer, so a guy gave me $1 million. I had to pay him 80% of the profit. I kept 20% of the profits. And I had a couple rules. There weren't very many rules, but one of them was no big trades during big meetings. Well, I made a big trade during a meeting and I did very well. I think I remember making a couple 100,000, but he walked out there and took his money away from me and said, there's rules here. I don't care if you make money or lose money. There's rules, and if you don't follow them, I can't have you I can't put my money in you. So it was a big lesson to me. Yeah.
What year was this? Sorry to ask.
I was in the early 90s. So this is in 1994. Yeah, 1994. Okay. And it was a lot of tears, a grown man crying because getting someone to back you took a long time to get. I was being risky. It kind of set the stage of how I was going to act in life. I wasn't scared of risk. I was aggressive. I loved money. I loved action. I loved buying and selling. I loved buying low, selling high. I was doing $50 million in trades a week as a young 20-year-old. And so it kind of set up early that I love those kind of things. But fast forward, my dad noticed I was kind of hurt and said, I have an idea.
Come to the nursery.
Yeah, he said, I'm thinking of leaving my dad's nursery and forming my own thing in a college town in Champaign-Urbana. And I didn't want to go to the small one in the family. Like, there's no way I'm moving to this small town. But Champaign-Urbana seemed like a nice college town. I love college towns. There's youth and sports and all kinds of things. So I had met my wife at the time. She wasn't opposed to it, and we moved here. And my dad and I started with like 3 employees. I told the story a million times. I did more on a Friday my last year than I did the whole year in retail sales. So we did more in one day than we did the entire year. So we're doing $5 or $6 million of stuff we grow ourselves. And I had a great life. That's a beautiful life. Growing plants, you're going to hear me tell all these analogies of plants, but life is like plants. It's patience, it's growing, it's trimming, it's culling out the bad ones. It's just, life is all about growing plants. And it taught me so much about that. And then, not speaking too much, but it kind of led me also to realize a business owner puts all their money back in the business. Your best investment is yourself. And so when you make money, you don't go invest it really in the stock market. You take it and reinvest it in your own company because you know what you can do with that money. So that's well and good. But what it turns out is when it's all said and done, all your money is in your company, which is a great company and a very profitable company. But every bit of profits goes back into expansion because we kind of talked before the show. You learn when you have a lot of employees and children that it's not about you. Your decisions affect everybody. My goal started to be a good business, but your goal eventually, I have 48 employees and 48 families and 48 people with children. I have to provide for them. Every dime I have has to go back in there because they want to make more money. They want more opportunity. They want to move up in their lives. And the only way to do that is for me to create that. They're not going to create that. They're going to be good employees and learn, but they're not going to create that opportunity.
Yeah, they have their own hopes and dreams and goals of their own, and they're working with you. Like, one of the things I think people forget when they have employees who work for them is that those people are working for you voluntarily. They're not required to come to work tomorrow, and they're not required to do anything for you, and they can quit at any time they want. And so I try to remember that. Some days I'm mad and I make mistakes and say things I didn't mean or whatever. Yeah. But going back to that is providing a place. You're right. They're 40 families. They're 80 kids if they all have 2 kids, and their wives or husbands or their own plans and their own hobbies and their own vacations. And I agree. You're 100% right.
And they should want more. But the problem is they want to take a step up, but it's my job to make the step. It's my job to create the step that they can step up at. And so, or step it up somewhere else. If I don't do a good job, they're going to step up, but they're going to go step up to a competitor or to another business. So I would love to keep them around. So that became my responsibility. And as you know, with 48, there's hierarchies, but you talk to everybody different. There's some people that a loud voice inspires them. There's other people where maybe an arm around the shoulder. You have to talk to every single person differently to inspire them and get them to go. And that becomes brutal. So I have my wife I talk to away, my daughter I talk to away, and then probably 22 other people I interact with daily that I have to remember how to interact with them. And as you become older, that becomes harder. It really does. As you become a middle-aged man, it's hard to talk to a 22-year-old woman in a way that drives them to become better. So I acknowledged all that, and I became probably worse at my job after 50 because it was such a diversity of employees and so you start stacking people in the middle to talk to them, and people don't think about that. But I thought it was more difficult, maybe because I had more people to
So when
talk to.
I was managing at one point over 50 people at Uniregistry, and I feel like in the beginning of it, I think I had a harder time, maybe because of the years of doing it. But now that I'm getting older, I find it easier to manage people because I think I might have a little less testosterone and more understanding and patience with people than I did before. And I think that comes with age.
True.
But I think talking to a 22-year-old and relating to them, whether it's a guy or a girl, I don't care. I think that, yeah, you're right. I'm 20 years removed from that now. So she's having challenges I've never had when I was in my 20s, or he had. But I think personally, having that patience is something I have that I didn't have, before.
No,
and sometimes it's like I'll write a mean email and I won't send it, and I'll let it sit overnight, where when I was younger, I'd been like, fuck you, and I'd send it, and you can't take it back,
No, that's the rule on emails. Yeah, there's nothing going out at night. No text. That's the other thing, is all text will get copied and pasted and put on social media. Like, no, I actually don't send anything. I'm only on the phone just because of that. But I agree with you. It's just everybody, that's the other thing, is motivating people is so individual. Like, what motivates one person versus another. And again, I do become better at that, but I do have to learn that John really likes his time off. Like, I can't motivate him with overtime and money and time and a half.
No,
he actually prefers that doesn't matter to him. He would rather have the time off. So, okay, well, I'm going to manage his schedule. And the other person's like, I don't ever want to leave. I want to make as much money as I can. So if I don't give them overtime, they're pissed. So anyway, that's kind of where I was. And I think I did a really good job, and I definitely grew, like you said. It just became so diverse and so big and so many responsibilities that people will say I micromanaged. What I did is I laid out the hierarchy too flat. I was so sick of 80s middle management. I hated how many levels there were in the 80s in businesses, that 6 people had to report to each other, that I flattened it out, and it became a little too flat. So I had too many people reporting to me once I got really large. So
you also end up with way too many chiefs and not enough Indians, right? At that point.
Yeah, and I think I had the opposite. I had a lot of Indians, and I was the chief of all of them, and I couldn't. It was just too much. Yeah.
And it's too overwhelming. Yeah, and delegating is hard sometimes.
Yeah, but it's a good lesson. I'm better and I'm a better business person. And so, getting back to domains, when I talk to someone, no matter how big their company, I kind of understand what they're going through. It may have more zeros, it may have more employees, but business is business. It's all the same. It's product, it's service, it's employees. And so when I talk to somebody about domains, if they want to go into the business side of it, I got you. Like, I get where you're coming from. Yeah, I understand that side.
Let's go back real quick. I want to ask you a quick question about when you risked this guy's $1 million and then he fired you over it. Do you think 30 years later, right? Yeah. You're in his shoes and you had a kid you gave $1 million to, and he did that and it was you. Do you think you would have fired yourself, or do you think what he did was harsh or over the line?
No, he is right. I don't know about firing, because I didn't really have any warnings, but so it's not like if you do it again, but I do feel like I should have known that those were his rules. And
but was that the cardinal rule? Like, that's the one thing you don't do?
At the time, I didn't know it was the cardinal, but I do know he was pretty set in his way. He was literally one of the first people to ever trade Black-Scholes model and options. He opened the Chicago Chicago Options Exchange. He was a legend. So it was an honor to have his money. I went to dinner at his house. But you know, I no, I don't doubt. It was dumb to do. The funny thing is, to this day, when I hold trades through the Fed meetings, I still get nervous. Like I do it now. I still trade during Fed meetings, and I all I can think about is like this cost me millions of dollars before, because that same trading group the next year nobody made under $1 million. Like nobody. They
Oh,
all crushed it. Yeah. And I was
but at
making
the same time, though,
18,000 a year.
yeah, but that's a real burnout job, and you just don't know where that could have taken you. You could have made millions, but had a
100%.
horribly unhealthy lifestyle and on your third heart attack right now. Like, you just don't
Yeah,
know,
no,
right?
I had a definitely a drinking problem like everybody else in the pit. We all had gambling problems. It's like a fraternity with billions of dollars. Like you just
Yeah.
it's the craziest. And my wife just said, she was already at the time, she was my girlfriend. She was already giving me signs that this lifestyle was not going to last long, because I took a job at a bar too, just for extra money and to meet people. I didn't even need it, but I would go. This is how hard I worked. I would get to the office at 5 a.m., trade till 2, close out my books from 3 to 5 and relax. I'd go to the bar at 6, and I work from 6 p.m. to 4 a.m. at the bar, and then get up and do that again. Like days on end, 1 hour of
How
sleep.
can you do that?
I don't know. It wasn't great. Like it wasn't.
Extracurricular inhibitors, maybe, to keep you
I would
going here and there.
But the money was so good. I won't bore the podcast, but the thing is, I would work the back door of this bar, and it's the most popular bar in Chicago. And the line every night would wrap around the whole building, and so the line would go around the building to this door, and everybody would knock on the door. Can I come in? And I started realizing I could charge them $20 to $50 to let them in that door and avoid the line. So I would make an extra $1,000 a night cash by letting people in that back door. And so I kept the job. Like I didn't really need the job, but when it was so lucrative, and finally the owners came up to me and said,
But it
"Shane,
adds up.
are you taking cash to let people in the back door?" And I said, "Yeah." And they're like, "That's brilliant. Split it with me." So they let me continue to do that, and then I split the money. But every night, my wife will tell you the story, I'd come home exhausted, and I would just lay all the cash out on the counter, just all the money. And when I would come home from work, my wife would have it all almost like ironed and laid out, and I knew I had a good woman, because she had that money perfectly managed, stacked, hidden. She was my money manager, and she's been my money manager for 30 years ever since.
Wow. So how did you
Yeah.
end up? So you did the nursery for a long time,
Yeah.
and then you started. How did you find out about domains and that opportunity? It seems
Yeah,
kind of
so
strange.
Yeah, so it sounds like it, but a serial entrepreneur, right? So I've always been doing things on the side, but as a business owner, you know that money goes back into the business, and you're only going to get a certain amount of salary. So I always wanted to do something on the side, and the internet came around, and I'd been on the bulletin boards doing auctions since, I'm not exaggerating, since 1984. The old modem would go on to the phone would fit onto the modem, and there was a bulletin
Yep.
boards, and you would do an auction. Like it would say, I have a Star Wars Boba Fett condition 9, high bidder is Sven 64, and then somebody else would make a bid, and I would just keep doing that auction, a visual auction, and whoever won would mail me a check, and I would mail out the toy, and they would give me a rating. I did that since high school with Star Wars toys and toys. So the internet came around, and so on the side, even in the 90s, I started buying domain names, buying plant names, because I figured maybe we're going to sell plants on the side. So I bought, Schilling was way ahead of me, because he was literally just going through the plant dictionary and registering names. But names that he didn't get, I would register those plant names, like boxwood.com. Any plant I saw in the nursery, anything related to the nursery that I thought was an item, I would buy. So I did that on the side. But my real money maker was this story that we just had about the trading. I wrote a
Yeah.
blog called Wall Street Fighter, and everybody wanted to hear my trading stories. They just wanted to hear what I did, what I spent money on, working at the bar, the women, the alcohol. They loved those stories. So I'm like, I'm going to blog that, because these other blogs are writing about things that are, I think, boring. So I wrote this blog, and I built it up to 1 million readers a month. And
Wow.
so it got bought out by Lionsgate Films and Break Media for a good amount of money. And I realized, okay, I can write a blog. I know how to monetize the internet. So I'm going to buy more domains. That's when I decided, like that was in 2007, 2008. That's when I realized, okay, now I have enough money to start buying good domains and buying and selling domains. So I bought that money and I put them into domains that actually made me money. So I've been doing it since the 90s, never really made much money. But when that Wall Street Fighter sale came through and I got that big check, then I had the experience that we all talk about, like not just jumping into domains. I had the experience with domains, but now I had a little bankroll. So that's when it all started to me.
And then what was the first domain other than that blog that you sold for a profit? Because I call that more of a website or a business that
The
you sold.
first
What
big
was
one
the
was
domain?
boxwood.com. I sold it to, I saw that it doesn't resonate, but I sold it to a British or a UK based computer company for $10,000. So
Yeah, that's a great name.
yeah,
Good brand.
it
Yeah,
is
I like
it
it.
is a good name. I just hand registered boxwood.ai, just trying to bring it all back together. I was like, if I can sell it once, I can do AI in my second go round. But yeah, so that was the
Yeah, I
first
mean,
big one.
yeah, that's a good one. And what was like your very first when you're like, holy shit, someone's offering me some money for this?
Um, that's the first one that somebody actually paid five figures. The rest of them were more parking like everybody else, right? Like I wasn't as
Yeah.
concerned with, I wasn't concerned with selling the domain as I was trying to get revenue in. Like I didn't think about the big sale. Like at the time when I first got started, I was thinking the big sale was a name that was generating good revenue. I wasn't looking
Hmm.
at it like we do now. I was looking at it as an asset that yields, not as an asset that multiplies the yield. So
Hmm.
um, that was a change for me. Once I started doing that, a lot of people that know in 2007, I became the fournumber.com king. Like that's what I first started with. As I said, numbers are universal. And I couldn't afford three numbers at the time, so I was buying every four number I could for $500 to $1,000, and I just bought them and bought them and bought them, and I flipped them a little early when they became 20,000, but I did very, very well. I mean,
So in
I
like
bought at X
2015, how did you do?
2015.
2014, 15 is when the Chinese market
I was
exploded with
mostly
all
out
of
of
it.
it.
Yeah.
I did well there because I had some portfolio, but I had sold before the big rush. So I definitely
Yeah.
lost hundreds of thousands of dollars in potential, but I had already moved on to other names that have done fine for me. So no, I didn't kill it in the Chinese. I mean, I did fine. I think all of us did pretty well because of the four
Yeah.
letter dot coms. Remember the four letter dot coms, if they didn't have a vowel, became just money. So
Yeah.
yeah, it was good. But we also were doing six numbers. Like we got a little crazy during that period of time.
Oh
But
yeah. And
yeah,
there's a lot of people
I
holding the
yeah, no, that's and I
bag.
did I'm famously on .ws. I tried doing, and I still own some like two letter .ws's, and I look at a lot of things as why not, like just like the people did the .ai 4 years ago and spending that amount of money to renew for 4 years, and some people thousands of domains that weren't selling for 3 and 4 years at 50 plus a pop. Um, I did that with some other TLDs that didn't quite work out. Like I still don't understand why .cc hasn't become crypto, but it is what it is,
Yeah. So what are your feelings about .ws? Because I remember when you were pushing
Yeah.
it, and then a group of people bought some, and I think I own. I didn't invest in a lot of domains, but I think I own like five or six of those right now. So, and
Well, I'll
they're
have one for the rest of my life because I bought Christmas.ws that had a 99-year renewal. Remember when they did those?
yeah. So,
Yeah.
have you sold
So
any of those, or have any action on them whatsoever? Or
I have sold some two letters for 2,000 a piece. So I have them all priced at 2 grand, and I've
uh
sold
huh.
two of them. Has it covered
Okay.
me? I highly doubt it, but I'm
No.
down to like five two letters and five two numbers. Um,
Yeah, that's about
but
right.
it is what it is. And where we went back, we got here through risk. We all came in here doing things that people didn't think had potential. And I've never ever told anybody to do what I've done. My entire time, anybody that knows me in this industry, I share everything. It's only to show my journey and to journal, and you can follow along if you want. You can learn from my mistakes. You can learn from what I've done well. I just talk about it because I don't think I'm doing anything to hide. Like there's nothing that I do that I feel uncomfortable about doing. If I can't tell you about it, I shouldn't have been doing it, right? Like if it's something that I can't put on Twitter, then I shouldn't do it. Now, personal, I get. As far as personal is different, but I'm talking about like, if I'm doing something that's proprietary, I get all that part of it. But I mean, as far as just our journey and what we're doing is where I'm headed with that.
Oh, I agree. Well, it leads me to a question I wanted to ask you about was with DSAD, where you put the list of auctions and then you point out names that you like on those lists on a daily basis. And as an investor yourself, why are you drawing attention to names that you probably want to bid on and that it ends up costing you money in the end if you're attracting
I've never felt that I put anything up there that wasn't going to get discovered. Domain investors are way too smart nothing gets passed. I talk to these guys daily. They have way more tools and they're going to find everything. Nothing's getting through these auctions that they're not going to see. Mine is only a reminder to and yes, maybe there's some newer investors. I just feel like it's not costing me that much. I really don't think so. Because the person that I'm bidding at the final and going bidder 17-18, 17-18, 17-18.
Yeah.
That person was going to be there regardless of my list.
That's how you feel about it.
That's how I feel about it. I really don't. I don't feel that I'm that special. I don't feel that my list is changing. I think it's getting some eyeballs on some names that they wouldn't have seen. And I'm not just selling myself. I think for the auction houses, it does help. It only takes one more bidder to run it up. So for that side, that is true. But I'm not buying that many domains, right? I'm buying domains that were probably going to get there anyway. I was concentrating on the higher end names. I wasn't going through closeouts. So when I show a closeout that I think is good, it's really not costing me anything. I'm starting to do more closeouts, so it's probably costing me a little now, but I'm just not worried about it. Like I'm going through the list. I'm doing it anyway. Why not write out a list? Why not chronicle what I'm looking at every single day anyway and making a little money doing that? That's kind of how I've looked at it.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I mean, so like today, speech bubble was one of your top ones, right? And I feel like an investor who sees that, it would have been on their radar anyway, because my tools tell me that term is searched 33,000 times a month on Google.
Yeah.
So that is on the top of every investor's radar. But at the bottom of the list or in the middle of the list is like a random 3word.com, and it doesn't have a lot of search, but you can see that it's a term that might be up and coming, but it's going to take a little bit of work to find it. And I think that you might bring those to the top and let people know about those that compared to the other 5,000 that look exactly the same, that's exactly the same. But you're saying, look at this, and then I would spend the time, and then that's when it probably could cost you.
Yeah, it's probably more in the lower end names that like the closeout ones that I put out there. And I do think I built up enough reputation. So there are some paid listings on there, right? There's some people that ask me to put names on the list, but they're all paid listings because everybody up there pays me to list. There's NameJet. I work with NameJet. I work with Dynadot. I work with DNWE. I work with all those companies to provide visibility to their companies. So I say that right up front. I always make that very clear.
Yeah, I saw it on the site. It tells you.
And I want people to know that. But at the same time, I have freedom to put anything I want. They're not telling me to put any one name. It's just for visibility.
Yeah, but I mean, if you were making all bad picks and it was all trash, like
you're not
no one's going to read it, so it's pointless. They're llooking at 100%. The clicks and things like that.
Yeah, and we track everything. We track every name to see who. Like it helps me build a better list, right? So I can see what names get clicked on the most, and that lets me know what names people are looking for. Like if I put like a .net, just making it up. If I put on a net and it's the number one clicked one, I'm like, well, people are looking for more .nets than I assumed. So I can learn from the clicks on which one people are going through. So it's been great for me to learn more about the names to go through every day. And I have Josh and Travis helping me now write the list, because it does take me a couple hours. People like Josh and Travis, they don't put out the words, and the words are stupid a lot of times. My comments generally make no sense, and I'm having fun. I don't know that they add value, but to me, that's how I've always done it. That's just me. And so I'll do it the way I want, and I enjoy doing it. And, but it does take over an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, depending on the thing, every single day. And I have a life. I was already working 60 hours at the nursery, doing my own domain thing for 10 hours. I do lots of activity. So my week was 80, 100 hours. For 28 straight years, I got up at 4:30 and went to bed at 9:30 with no TV or stopping in between kids and family. I did that for 28 years. Nobody could keep up with me for those 28 years.
You're a machine.
It was ridiculous. It was a bit much. Once I retired, I look back and I don't know how I did it. Once I stopped, I don't know if I could do it but again, we talked before, working, putting in the time is not the problem. 40 hours a week is vacation now. 40 hours a week over 7 days, my goodness, I can do anything.
But it sounds like you're channeling that energy now into running, right?
Well, I've always ran. I've always run 50 miles a week. I just did it at 4:30. Now I can do it at 6:30. That's when I ran this morning.
And then go for a run.
Yeah, that's the difference. Is now I get 8 hours sleep. I didn't have, and I'm not exaggerating this, I didn't have 30 minutes of REM sleep. That means dream sleep for 20 years. For 20 years. I never had a dream. I did not remember a dream for 20 years. I never had a dream. And I'm not exaggerating. Ask my wife. Never had a dream. Once I retired and started sleeping, I have these vivid dreams. I've never had those before. No, I mean, I had them I never drink. Yeah. I mean, I shouldn't say never, but it's I just,
because when I drink, I usually don't dream. Yeah. When I drink, I don't.
That's because you're not getting your REM sleep. Yeah.
Yeah,
you're
exactly.
Not getting the right sleep.
I've dialed it back a bit, and now I'm getting very vivid, memorable dreams again. So.
Yeah, I get them now. Now I have to wake up and decipher what's real and what's not. I literally have to sit up and think, okay, what is true and what isn't, because the dreams are so real. But before that, I'm sure I had them, but I never remembered them. And my latency, the time between getting in bed and going to sleep, never over 2 minutes. It was under 2 minutes, I was asleep. That's
wow.
So fast.
That's annoying. Yeah. That'd make me angry if you're next to me, because it takes me a while.
My wife would that's the running joke. She's like, she'll go brush her teeth, and I'll say, I'll wait up for you. And she just laugh, because she knows by the time her teeth are brushed, I'm out. You're done. But
that's great.
But that's my life. Everybody's got their own life, right? I enjoyed it. I have no problems with it, but hard working is something that I feel very comfortable with.
So you're going to do something, or you're training to do something that I physically think you would probably have to push me across the line in one of your nursery's wheelbarrows, is training for a 100-mile marathon.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was at the gym today on the treadmill doing a very brisk walk / jog, and I did 2 miles, and that was at, the steepest it could go, and that was enough for me. And then I could probably run 2 or 3 miles and probably collapse and then be, cramps all over for the next few days. So how do you even get past the, all right, 26.2 mile marathon. Now I'm going to multiply that times 4. How do you even get to that level of even fathoming it and then attempting it and training for it and not hurting yourself horribly while doing it?
That kind of leads us to our uncomfortable, right? That's why I own uncomfortable.com, which I will forward for this show so we can all see it. But,
there we go.
Yeah, it's all about understanding. You have to teach your body to be uncomfortable, right? So our body is very protection. Everything, it protects us. If we get tired, it puts lactic acid in our legs, so we slow down. If we can't catch our breath, we pass out, so we start naturally breathing. It's made to protect. Your feelings, your emotions are all to protect you. So the only way to get past that is to slowly introduce it to things to teach it that you're gonna be okay. So that's the process of training. your process of training is not just straight cardiovascular health and in shape. That's part of it. But it's teaching your mind and your body that I'm going to hurt a little bit, but please let me go on because I'll be okay. Like it's just going to be a little
Yeah.
pain. I'm not going to die. So introducing that day by day, year by year will teach your body. That's when it can get dangerous because of the point where it won't stop you anymore. Like you will die because it doesn't stop you at any. You'll get to a point where it doesn't stop you for anything. You literally can, run yourself into dangerous situations of overheating and things like that. But anyway, so that's the man in all this is Aaron Wilkins. So DSAD is Domain Shane and the Accidental Domainer. His name is Aaron Wilkin. He had a blog called The Accidental Domainer, and we combined them. But
Oh, okay.
he wanted to travel. He didn't want to write every day. He had things to do, and he is an ultra marathoner. He doesn't do small little ones. He's done all the best races. He's done Leadville 100. He's done Moab 240. He did a 240-mile run. This past year, he did Mont Blanc 100-miler, New Zealand
So
100-miler.
the Moab is 240 miles nonstop.
Yes, and he did it. He completed it.
And
Yeah.
is that terrain, I'm guessing,
All
what's
over
the condition?
hilly, so there's tons of elevation. So that one has, he'll correct me, but I think it's 30 or 40,000 feet of elevation gain and obviously the same coming down. The one I want
Do
to
you
do
have to
is
get new shoes?
17,000. Pardon me?
Do you do you have to do like a pit stop to change your shoes halfway through, or like,
Oh, there's a lot
I
of pit
mean,
stop. It's 4 days. Yeah, you have to
okay.
change clothes, you have to change shoes, you have to eat. I mean, yeah, you're constantly trying to stay alive. Yeah, I mean,
Wow.
he'll tell a story of passing out in a parked car that he found because he thought he was gonna die, and then he got some rest and got back going. Like
I
those
got to
kind of
meet him for
stories.
the first time. I got to meet him for the
He's
first time at the
one
ICA
of my
event. He's a
favorite
really
people in
nice
the whole
guy.
world. Yeah,
Yeah, he
great
seems like
domain
a genuinely
investor.
nice guy.
He's great. We hiked. That's the thing is he's taught me a lot about this, and he always told me one day you're gonna not want to run so fast. You should try ultras because ultras are more about walking the hills and pacing yourself. It's kind of like life. You're at some point you're not gonna be able to sprint everything, and you're gonna have to take things a little slower and do things a little different. And that's kind of where I'm at. I broke 3 hours in the marathon 2 years ago. 6:48
Hmm.
pace for a 53-year-old is good, but I can't
That's
go any
amazing.
faster. I can't go any faster. Like that's as fast as I'm gonna go. So
Yeah.
what do I do? I've already done Ironman. I did Ironman. My first triathlon was an Ironman because I was like, those guys can do it. I can do it. And then I did it. And I came home and my wife said, that's pretty good for someone that didn't train hard enough. And I was like, damn, it's on. So I did another one to see if I could do better, and I did. But then I thought the same thing. Like, how fast can I go? I can't go much faster. So anyway, we have a place in Leadville, Colorado that's great training. It's a home of Leadville 100. I'm going to in the mornings put in the hours and on the weekends put in the hours and then work during the day. So that's what I love about domain investing. I think all of us do, right? All of us love that we can work the hours we need, and it's really not consistent. You know what I mean? Like the emails aren't just flowing every 5 minutes forever. You can answer emails when you
Yeah.
answer emails. You can talk to customers when you need to. When you have a meeting, you can set those in advance. You don't have to take instant meetings. So you can plan and be flexible. Many jobs cannot do that. It can be from anywhere. So I can live here now. I can go to North Carolina 1 month. Nobody knows, nobody cares. As long as behind me is a Zoom and I can have good internet connection, I can do it. So that's what I love about domaining is an opportunity of a lifetime to be able to do that. So I want to do everything but help Mrs. Havisham pick out a blood good maple that died last
Yeah.
year on Sunday morning. I saw the first Saturday in my yard in 28 years. I'd worked every Saturday. If I didn't work it, I was out running a race or doing something with friends. It was never at home. I sat at
Yeah.
my home or saw my daughter. Like with kids, you're an Uber. You play I've watched every sport that a young woman could ever participate in. I traveled to see that. So if you give up your time on the weekends to go away from your business, it's for somebody else. And
It is.
um,
You're absolutely right.
and that's
It's not for me.
that's That's how it is. So when I sat here the first retired Saturday, I literally cried a little bit. Like I it was amazing. Like a beautiful Saturday to work in my yard. A cobbler's son has no shoes. I'd never worked in my yard on a Saturday in decades. So
But it was kind of like the changing of the chapter in your life, right? That's the emotion kind of
yeah,
behind it. And
yeah.
then, you brought up, so for the record and people listening, Shane and I have known each other for a long time. I actually saw you rupture your Achilles one time playing soccer.
No, yeah,
And
it
we
was
were all
actually tore. It was I tore my hamstring. The only time I've ever taken off running for that long. It was brutal. Yeah, it was the worst
yeah, he
injury I've
hurt
ever
his
had.
hamstring. Yeah, and we were playing soccer at one of the at the Domain Fest in Las Vegas at some indoor place. It was just a group of us decided to play a soccer game, and he hurt himself. And we've always been friendly through the years, but we've never really done a sail together and had a lot of
Yeah,
conversations. And then at the ICA event, we talked for like a half hour or 40 minutes about running and about the business and
yeah,
about all kinds of things. And then we decided to have for you to come on the show. You messaged me and say, "Hey, can I come on?" I said, "Sure." And it was funny because at the ICA event, people said to me like, "Oh, you're doing." How did they put it? Someone said, "You're doing a podcast similar to the one Shane does," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" He's like, "Oh, well, his blog is called Uncomfortable," and I was like, "I didn't even know that," and
yeah.
I actually didn't know. Like, I didn't say, "Oh, I'm just going to copy him," but
No, I
like,
know
if
you
I knew
didn't.
that, I wouldn't have done it. And it's like we're in the same small industry, but we're also, some people are in bubbles, and I've been more on the brokerage side in my life, in my business, than domain
Yeah,
investing. And I'll be honest, like, I haven't really read your
yeah,
blog very often. I mean, I
yeah. It's
think,
not what you do.
what'd you say?
It's not really what you do. It's not like you're going looking for closeout domains. That's not your thing.
No, it's not my specialty. And I know Josh. He's a great guy. I
Yeah,
think his story is great, being a firefighter and, a domain
he's
investor.
great.
And he was telling me how
Yeah,
he'd be like picking names off the list in the firehouse, waiting for a fire and being a domainer. And it's a really cool story that he has. And, and uncomfortable for me was I had in some people's eyes one of the most perfect jobs in the world, working as, in a cool startup on an island, getting compensated a lot of money, being part of a great team and great people, and going to the beach on the weekends and doing those things. And I decided I needed more of a challenge, and it was time to go. And when I resigned, I called Frank and talked to him about it. And when I hung up the phone, I looked at my wife and I said, "What the fuck did I just do?" And there was crying involved and there was emotions involved, but I knew
yeah,
that it was time to go on and kind of do my own thing and spread my own wings and get out there and put myself, as corny as it is, in an uncomfortable situation to
yeah,
make myself grow. And I did it when I joined Uniregistry because I had my own business before that, and the opportunity came, and that was leaving a good
yeah,
paying job and a good opportunity and success to put myself again in my, out of my comfort zone. And I think if you're going to grow or want to accomplish anything, you got to do it. Right. And if I never wanted to do that, I could still be a broker working at Cito, and there's nothing wrong with that either, but I would still just be doing, what they're doing, what I was doing there first, or
yeah,
selling mortgages when I got out of college. Right. And again,
yeah,
that's a great living, but I wanted more, and I wanted to, challenge myself more. And that's, and then this as a podcast, I do get nervous before some of the episodes, and I was nervous before I launched it. And I was worried about how people were
yeah,
going to perceive it and if they enjoy listening to it, or am I going to check the views like after we post this one and there's two and it's yours and mine.
yeah.
But then it's
No,
like you do it, and you're like, that wasn't so bad. Let's try something else,
100%. And
and
for
you
our
keep going.
kids, like, but part of the thing that I always tell everybody is in order to make these uncomfortable decisions, we always have a base of somebody that loves us, right? Like, I know that if I failed when I retired, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But I know that
Mm-hmm.
my wife would be there for me. I know that my daughter, that no matter if I failed miserably or we didn't have enough money or it didn't go well, that I had a base of people that love me. And I know that sounds corny, but that's true. To really get better, you have to have this base of people that care about you because you have a place to fall. And that, so you can go get uncomfortable knowing that the it could go horribly wrong and it could be a terrible decision, or you could push, like in racing, you could push yourself too far, but you're going to come home and you're going to be fine. Like you're going to still have people there that are still rooting for you. And that was always a good base for me to allow me to become more uncomfortable and to make harder decisions. And then teaching my daughter, I can't tell her to do something and not do it myself. Like she's scared to death to go give a speech. Well, I can't tell her that she has to do it. And then at the same time, I'm not doing things like that. Right. So by having a kid and trying to teach them, it shows you're telling them all these things you should be doing, right? That you should be. So
Yeah.
I'm right there with you. Like those are the moments that make us better. And that's always been my mantra. And that it's proven now. Like I was listening to Huberman Labs. It is proven that those uncomfortable decisions build a part of your brain that makes decision making, the decision making part of your brain grows. And it's not made when you make decisions that aren't uncomfortable, that you want to. It's only made during the hard times. That's why David Goggins is who he is, because he's
That guy's
always
an animal.
doing, he's an animal, but it's a proven
Animal.
fact. And
Yeah.
it's scientifically proven that you get better by doing things that you don't want to do.
I want an alarm clock that's him yelling at me in the morning to get going. I think that
Yeah,
will.
burn the boats or no, it's he has been motivating. Like he's not I know he mentally is as troubled as a human being. Like he's got
Oh yeah,
demons. There's no doubt
he
about
does.
it. But at the same time, he's not wrong. Like we are capable of way more than we think we are. And but I do think it comes down, I'm really big about building a base of friends and people that care about me. I mean, I don't mind saying that Adam Strong said that I sometimes take things too hard, and he's not wrong. But what he doesn't know is I only take it hard from the people that I care about, right? If some random stranger
Yeah.
says something on the internet, or that doesn't bother me at all. But if somebody I care about says something, yeah, it bothers me, and I probably take it too hard. But that's because that base is also the base that's driven me. My friends around me that root me on, that catch me if I fall. That's really, really important. People with that kind of base do great things. They think it's a loner mentality. Loners don't go real far. At some point, you can only go so far by yourself. It kind of goes back to our talk before. Your brokerage can only be so good with just you. Your company can only be so good with just you. It takes this giant group of people to really do amazing things.
Yeah.
One person,
I
one person
agree.
doesn't do a ton of things.
Yeah, and I agree. And I think first and foremost, you're absolutely right. My wife has been 100% supportive. Making the decision to go to Cayman, she didn't even come with me or even ever step foot on that island. And she's like, "All right, I'm moving with you when you move."
Yeah,
Supporting leaving consistent income or not knowing and giving up a business to join Frank. He could have canned me 2 months in and moved back, and I had
yeah,
not like we had nothing. And then starting the business, we had a beautiful house in Cayman. Our kids were in school there. Like things were going well. One of my kids was, not both, but like things. We had
yeah,
friends. Like everything was the way that people dream. And I said, I don't want this anymore. So packed up the whole house. We moved in with friends. She supported that. The business was failing during COVID and the beginnings of it. I was writing checks to make the company stay alive. She's supportive of that, 100% listening to me talk
yeah,
about those things. And then at the same time, on the flip side, right, is I have friends that are totally supportive of me that are outside of the business,
yeah,
that I talk to on a regular basis, that are cheering for me when I tell them that good things are happening in my life. And they're like, "Oh shit, what's going on? Are you okay?" And then I also have some of the best friends I've ever made by being in this industry. And the
yeah,
funniest part is that some of those people are competitors of mine,
yeah,
right? And
yeah,
one that just texted me is Alan Dunn. My cell phone is off. He just texted me and said, "Is your phone working?" Because obviously he's trying to call me, right? And Alan
yeah,
Dunn owns Name Corp. He's a broker. And then you
yeah,
said, I want to go on the podcast, but I'm going to get into domain brokerage. We don't have to talk about it. But we're becoming closer friends, and it's like I'm fine with it.
yeah,
I'm fine with you
yeah,
talking about what you're going to go and do. And there's plenty of opportunity for all of us. And and I also think I also think it goes with saying in any business, and what I've learned over the years is, yeah, you can't do it yourself. And when I joined Frank, he said something to me that was interesting. He said, you're having a problem delegating the work, and it's almost like you're Hercules on one side of the ship with one giant oar and everybody else is on the other, and you're trying to pull, and they're doing the same amount of work and you're doing the same amount of work as they are, and you need to give people more work and more delegate more things to them and rely on those people to do and carry out those things. And with saw.com in my business last year, my goal was to, since I launched this business, was not just to build a brokerage, but to build kind of another platform similar to a domain name sales, because I was part of that design and I had a feeling that it would vanish. And I realized that I can't do it all by myself. And obviously I've hired other brokers at this point. Some of them are better than me at doing brokerage because I've been running this business and managing for the last 4 years. I still make sales, but I'm not pumping the phone all day like they are, and I'm not as sharp as I used to be. But I realized that I needed not just help on the sales side, but also on the tech side, and that you can't get there on your own, and just like with Uniregistry, Frank was the face of the company, but behind Frank was 120 other people working to a common goal. And it's like, and there you go. So you're right. I need people to help me emotionally. I need people to help me in business. And then I also need people, like, the way I look at my friends. I got a friend who's like a financial planner. I've got a friend who's an accountant, and it's not by design. I got a friend who's a director in like middle management at a large company, and I've got other random friends in totally different industries. But it's almost like they're my board, board of advisors. And depending on like the situation I might find myself in, other than just talking about life, like a business issue, like talking to them helps me work it out from a different
your peers and your friends tend to be people that you admire, right? You don't find people that you're always having to pick up. Like there are going to be times that they need your help as well. But when it comes to intelligence and ethics and all that stuff, you generally tend to hang out with people that are equals or even aspire to be. And so I'm in the same boat as you. I live in a university town, so my friends are all doctors, but some are medical doctors and some are PhD doctors, but they're all of that level. I mean, my best friends are almost all medical doctors, because men my age that are running and doing things and driven tend to be driven in life, right? So they tend to be in professions that take being driven. And it's great because they're fascinated by my stories of domains, or in our conferences, right? When we had our crazy conferences, I'd come home and tell them those stories and they'd be like, that is amazing, because they don't get to do that kind of stuff. And then at the same time, I'll talk to the tech people and they're fascinated by plants. Like, I have a house plant. Can you tell me how to help? Like, they're fascinated by the patience that I have with growing flowers. So it's just been this, like you said, it's like this beautiful thing. And I think the best leaders acknowledge all the things that you've said, right? You don't always get straight there, but the best leaders, they are the face, and they have to be a leader and they have to step forward. But leading is also creating those opportunities. We had talked about this earlier, creating the opportunities for those around you. Your job as a leader is to create opportunities for those that you work with. And so it's not about you. Again, I say this, it's like children. It's not about you. And I don't mean to say that employees are children, but you are their leader. Leaders provide for them, leaders guide them, leaders support them, and leaders give them opportunity. And opportunity is all that anybody can ask. Humans only want two things: to stay busy and opportunity. That's really all they want. They want to stay busy. People think people are lazy. That's bullshit. Everybody wants to be busy. It may be busy in something that you don't want them to be busy in, but in general, they do want to be. An employee loves to have things to do. And organized things to do. They don't want to just say, here's a book, go do something. No, they want a little bit of guidance, and that's leadership, and not everybody's meant to be a leader. I look at somebody that's not doing a good job, and I just said, they're just not a leader. And there's nothing wrong with that. We're not all born leaders. But COVID for me taught me that I was a leader. Like when COVID came and the trouble came, I just felt amazing. Like I felt I'm going to get our company through this. I felt that it was like nothing I've ever experienced. I was so happy to have that. And my wife, I go, why am I so excited about COVID? She's like, this is a chance for you to be a leader. This is a chance for you to do things and get people through this. And that's, leaders love those type of opportunities. Here's the downside. When it was all over, you just come down. Like once I had a great COVID because our sales were double. You know, everybody was gardening. Everybody was doing everything that I had to offer. They wanted. But when it was over, it's kind of the band stops playing. Then we're back to normal. Then we're everything, and it's just not as exciting. So I struggled almost emotionally, which is, you can't tell anybody that because everybody else is like, I finally get to fucking go out. Sorry, my language, but I finally get to go eat, and I get to, my business was, I was dying. I financially was getting killed, and I'm the opposite. I was like, I was making so much money. I'm actually coming down from that. So it was a very difficult time. But to roll that back into what you said, yeah, I mean, you have to learn to be a leader. You have to learn to be a manager. You have to, it's just part of growing up and becoming better at what you do. Frank wasn't wrong. You were probably doing exactly what he said. I've done the same thing. My father told me that over and over, but I don't always listen to him because he was my father. It's hard to have your father as your boss. That's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, I agree, 100%. So let's talk about what your future plans are and getting yourself a little more uncomfortable is you're going to be launching your own domain brokerage in the very near future. What are you going to call it?
Well, I don't know what I don't know. Let's put it this way. I know I want to do domain brokerage. I know,
Okay.
I do enjoy outbound sales. Like it's almost, I hate to put it this way, but it's almost like a game. You have this, it's nobody's looking for your email, right? You have a domain name and the people that you're trying to reach aren't looking for your domain at that time. Like you're trying to quote convince them, or you're trying to reach out people that it could work out with well. And I think that's exciting. Like I do like it's a talent. I wasn't very good at it, and I'm probably still not very good at it, but I do like that prospect of matching great companies with domains that can multiply the efforts that they have. And that's a tough job. That's a tough job, and it can't be spammy. Spam is a huge problem, but essentially that outbound is, I really enjoy that part of it, and I love the negotiation part. I love, and I said this to Drew on Domain Sherpa quite often, I love selling expensive domain names, but I love the businesses that are able to afford them and how they're going to utilize them. Like that's what I think I love that story. I love that. That's what the podcast that I was doing when I was doing Uncomfortable. It was talking to people that were building businesses, because I want to know how you can afford $1 million domain. What have you done and what have you created, and what are your skill sets, and what are your thought process of being able to form a company that can afford $1 million domain? And once you've bought that domain, how are you going to make that $1 million pay off? Because it's not just going to be a little thing you stick at the top of your website, right? It's more to it than that. So I love that conversation, and I want to have more of those conversations. I want to talk to serial entrepreneurs that come back and say, Shane, that worked out great. I'm looking for something in the skateboard. I want that to happen, because I know serial entrepreneurs, once they've figured out domain names, they're addicted. They want to come back and do more things with domain names because they know the effect it has. So that's my future. Yeah. That's what I want to build my own portfolio up and continue to grow and add more domains. Now that I can spend a little more time hunting, I'd like to do that. And then I want to be in the domain business, plain and simple. Whatever that entails, I want to be in that business. That's what I want to do for a living, is I want to buy and sell domain names, utilize domain names, everything about that. I want to be part of it. So that's kind of my future. What that holds, I'm not quite sure. I've tried out some things, some have worked, some haven't, and I'll just keep building on that. But I know that if I do work, I do want to work with a team, and I want to work with a team that is a team, just like we talked about before. If
Yep.
I'm not the leader, I want the leader to be someone that makes everybody better, right? That's what we're looking for. I'm too old to have anything but, right? I'm too old to do anything but something I really love and enjoy. And that doesn't mean every second. That doesn't mean every minute's going to be enjoyable. Uncomfortable, as we said, has to be part of it.
Yeah.
But in general, I'm going to be 55 years old. I want to go out in these last 20 years and have a hell of a time, make some money, do great things with great people. That's plain and simple if I was going to put it in a nutshell.
What
Just don't know
CRM are
what
you
that
planning
is.
on using?
Pardon me?
What CRM are you planning on using?
I think pretty much everybody does the same thing, right? I think everybody pretty much uses like an Apollo based for emails. They use LinkedIn Sales Navigator is kind of a contact point and a searching point. And then as far as the notes, everybody uses a little bit of different, how they keep their notes and their. But yeah, I think everybody uses the same thing. I know everybody likes to pretend that they have something special, um, but everybody pretty much uses the same two or three people to find source contacts. And then some people, I'm a big builder of, when I say proprietary tools, having tech build stuff that pretty much uses the information we get from everybody else and feeds it into a way that we can use it where we're comfortable, right? Like that's
Mhm.
that's what we do.
Yeah, and I mean, we
So
use as a company, we do use Apollo. We find the being able to find contacts, and if you want to put them into like an email campaign, Apollo is good for that. It's a confusing website with so many bells and whistles and things. It's like there's just so
yeah,
much going on it, and it's sometimes hard to navigate. But as a CRM, we use like close.com because we like that one because you can create as many custom fields as you want. You can create and track all of the leads that you're working on. So you could
yeah,
export the leads from Apollo in there, or you could take, opportunities out of Sales Navigator, and then it integrates with
you can just feed it in
Zapier. I
there.
don't know if
Yeah,
you ever heard.
yeah.
And then do you know what Zapier is?
I don't think
So
I've seen it, but I've never used it. No, I'm not familiar with it.
so with Zapier, you can so instead of you paying someone for APIs, you go
Yeah.
on Zapier and you can search like whatever services you need, and Zapier connects to Close, and then you can have it do different things. So like one of the
So you
things
have it
that we
like it's like
have
a
is
plug-in for APIs. It's like a plug-in
yeah,
to yeah,
and so like Close has is on Zapier, and then like one of the products we use is like IP Stack. So then when someone inquires to our website on a lead, they inquire, we got the IP address, then Zapier hits IP stack, and then it tells us where the person's located and puts it in
yeah,
the lead
yeah.
in the
Super
CRM.
smart. Yeah,
Right? Or if you want like different data sets, or if somebody unsubscribes from an email, it updates it, removes the email address, like, and it does all different things. So as a when I started the business, where I was used to this robust system of uniregistry domain name sales that we built over 7 years,
yeah,
I had nothing.
yeah.
Right. And so
You knew what you
I
wanted
was
it to
able,
do. You just didn't know how to get there.
well, I don't know how to write a line of code.
No, but you knew what you
So
wanted it to do. You just had
yeah,
no
but
way of creating
no
that.
way, but I also didn't have any time because
Yeah,
I needed to get something going and get it going fast because I needed to start getting going with the business. So then Zapier allowed me to do kind of like backyard mechanic work, to
hmm,
make my
yeah.
system
Paint by
work
numbers.
in short term. And as you get bigger, you start to replace Zapier in different areas because it can get expensive because you buy credits every month,
Yeah,
right? But like if I were to start another domain brokerage or any sales platform and I didn't want to spend a lot in development, I would use Close, set up my fields, and then use Zapier to help enrich. That's the word they use, enrich the data in some way, and then you
yeah,
can do different, fun stuff with it. Um,
yeah,
Sales Navigator is not bad. I find what the unfortunate thing these days with LinkedIn is a lot of people are automating their communications in LinkedIn. And now a lot of the experience on LinkedIn for me is I just get a lot of trash. People
yeah,
messaging me constantly about stuff.
yeah,
And you're like, I'm not, I try to respond to everybody and check it. And you're like, I'm not interested. And they just keep writing to you. Like, and it's
yeah.
automated.
Yeah.
And it's just like, dude, like, please, like, respect, and what they're doing is they're ruining LinkedIn because other people that we want to contact are going to stop responding to
Yeah.
everybody, right? It's not going to be a useful tool. And
Yeah. You,
then,
you just
you
get
know,
thrown in the mass spam. So you look just like spam. Yeah.
yeah, just trash. And then we're just not worth it, right? And the more that time goes on, when you're trying to do an acquisition for somebody, the who is has been really privatized over the last, 8 or 10
Yeah.
years. So the who is history is starting to fade out. It's not as accurate as it used to be. But if you do find that nugget and you figure out that this is the owner or possible owner of the domain name on LinkedIn and you find them, the odds of them answering, it seems to be getting a little less as time's going on. And
Yeah.
I have a sense that when I started using LinkedIn back in 2002, if I messaged you on LinkedIn, I would usually, I think it was like a 90% response rate of people like, how are you? Like there was always, but now I feel
Yeah.
like it's starting, it's going down. And I don't know if LinkedIn's doing enough to block automated folks and people from areas of, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
certain
I'm
types of
starting to get
services.
sequences in LinkedIn. Like that's not something that
Yeah.
I didn't use LinkedIn because I didn't in the nursery business. My stuff was local and regional. I just didn't need those kind of contacts. Like it wasn't something that I needed. That's my awards are like my 1976 basketball awards when I was 7. Like nobody cares. But I'm starting to get sequences like, hey, would you like a virtual cup of coffee? And then I don't, and then another one comes. So that automation, that never happened. Like that
Yeah,
now
so that's
happens
what I'm talking about.
regularly.
It's happening more and more and more. And we've actually tried it as a business, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Let's just stop. Like I don't really
Yeah,
like
no,
it
nobody
myself.
wants that. I mean, that the honest truth about all email is it's spam, right? Like outbound in our industry is officially spam. Nobody asks for the email of you trying to sell a domain. So you have to remember that when you're reaching out to people, whether it's LinkedIn or email, officially by definition, us contacting you is spam. Now we can say, hey, it's a business thing, but it was they didn't ask for us to contact us. They had no interest going in. So you kind of have to keep that in mind and be professional and when you approach someone that it's in earnest and no is as good an answer as yes, right? So at least they respond. But I always in my LinkedIn I put my personal details. There's a picture of my family, my dog, so that if you get something from me, I'm hoping they at least look at me and go, this seems like a normal person. Like seems like I could call
Yeah,
this guy any day and get him on the phone. Like this is not a normal looking
yeah,
guy that you would expect. So I try and really personalize it, make everybody feel whether they've gotten an email from me or any kind of contact that this guy's only reaching me because he has something that he thinks I could use. So I'll give him the time. So that's the hopes. Like that's the goal. I'm new to this. I have tons to learn. I am not a professional at domain brokerage, but I feel like I'm a professional when it comes to understanding businesses and I like understanding the value. So I'll get better at what I do. One thing I do think that's catching everybody off guard is email. We talked about, we had a nice little discussion before, but email, Google's not messing around with spam anymore. Like everything has to be perfect or they're not letting things through. Like email is getting knocked hard. Everything has to match up. And it's good from a domain owner. Nobody's going to spoof you right now. If you spoof it, it's not getting through. But if you spam, you buzzwords are gone. Like all those words that people
yeah.
that
It's
were
hard.
amazing writers, done. You can't write like that anymore. It won't make it through spam. So you got to cut to the point or the chase right now. You got to keep it pretty clean on how you write.
Yeah, and I mean, you're right. But what's amazing is if I opened up my email right now, there's going to be in my other folder or promotions folder a ton of emails, right? And I get probably 50 or 60 of these a day. And then I
Yeah.
also get constantly are the fake DocuSigns and
Yeah.
the fake emails from my employees saying I want to update my bank details for payroll. I get those all the time.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
still
it's
make it
wild the
through.
amount of fraud that's happening.
Yeah,
And
that all still
again,
gets through. They're going to be one step ahead of everything. Like that's the thing is, when I look at the things that get through, the first thing I look through is I look at the email to see how it got through. Like what did they do? What can I use from those guys that'll help me get through? Like that's the first thing that I go, why are he getting through and I can't get a nice email through? So I try and look and see what they did to make it pass all the spam tests that I have going on. So in some cases, I kind of like getting some of them so I can learn from what are they doing.
Yeah.
And I also,
I've heard from somebody
go ahead.
I've heard that one of the moves that someone who's like a scammer would
Yeah,
buy a name in auction that was a developed site. And that site had a good reputation of sending emails to their customers. And so they'll pound that until it gets
100%.
blocked and then it closes and they trash that name and buy another or buy a bunch and just do that
100%. They
that
buy
way.
good
Yeah.
reputation domains. Yeah, it is domain reputation. And that's why it's difficult to start a new company with a new domain. You have to warm up the email. Like you've got to give it months and months and months of warm
Oh
up.
yeah.
That's why they have warm up services. I mean, that's why they do it, because in order to get an email in a domain, it has to show activity. And you can't start it off by emailing customers.
Yeah. But I also think, what I think is when your email gets through, then the odds of them responding and then them responding and then it meeting like whatever their plans are, you have no idea what's going on the other side. And then
Yeah.
them giving you the opportunity for a phone call or them not giving you the opportunity for a phone call and just saying how much, and then not responding or, saying they're not interested. Um, I mean, I think it's really like you're just you're dragging a net around the ocean. And I also found that we've been in a situation, I've personally been in a situation, and others in my company have been in a situation where some of these massive companies say either the domain isn't for sale or they're not interested in buying it. And we've gotten the domain by going to
Yeah.
somebody else, and we've sold the domain to somebody else in the company, where other times we've continued to pursue it and then got an email back from the lawyer saying you better stop.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like it's hard from our point of view too, because sometimes there's mixed signals, and then I also think,
Yeah.
go ahead. Yeah,
Well, I
go
was just
ahead.
gonna say I've had domains where I'll email it, I'll email and say it's not for sale, and then I'll get an email from a totally different person that says, "Hey, I heard from so and so that you were looking at the domain. What were you thinking of offering?" I'm thinking, hold on, are two people in the company? Like somebody's got to make this decision. And then when I ask the price, it's multiple six figures, and then another domainer 2 months later buys it for a tenth of that from that company. Like I'm
Yeah,
like,
it's
it's like a big company. Everybody, who's making that call to sell that domain. It's hard getting the right person that can actually make the efficient
yeah,
call.
yeah. Timing is sometimes the essence of life, right? And
Yeah,
one
yeah,
of the things that I find is that we offer our services and we've emailed companies about buying domains and it's radio silence, no response, no response, no response. And I've had it where we're saying, hey, you should buy this name, it would be a great fit for your company, right? Radio silence, call in, nobody answers, nobody gets back to us, we give up after a period of time. And I've been referred to somebody at that same company who says they want to buy this name. Would you like to represent us to go and acquire it? And I know that we've emailed them a bunch of times. We've called them a bunch of times and they're acting like this is a new thing and they've never considered buying this. And it's just weird how the timing and
yeah.
sometimes they just, for some reason, they didn't acknowledge your emails, even though we're spending a lot of time and energy making sure our deliverability rates are good and things like that. So, it's
Yeah,
just
there's
sometimes
luck.
it's just
Luck
one of
of the
those things.
draw is that's how it works, right? Even when you have a domain or you buy a domain and then all of a sudden you sold it, and the person that sold it because they hadn't had an offer in 5 years, then all of a sudden you buy the name and sell it, and they're like, that's just how life is. Like you just
Yeah.
there's nothing you can do about that stuff. You have to do what you can control and keep working after it. And but in our industry, we only get paid when we sell domains or buy domains or take actions. Like that's the only thing. All the rest of the work doesn't get paid. Like you're not getting a salary. There's not. It's commission, and you have to earn it. And I'm hoping, and I found that it all evens out. Right. You're going to get those sales that you barely did any work and it falls into your lap. And then there's going to be other ones where you work your ass off and really nothing comes of it. So you just have to hope that overall, when it's all said and done, that it's worth your time, and it usually is, right? Like most of us have done very well
Yeah.
over the years. But in any individual case, if you try and say that it happened because of X or Y, maybe it did. Sometimes it's
Well,
just yeah,
yeah. I mean, I think the X and Y is that you create a process and a formula and you stick with it and you
hmm
consistently stick with it and work hard at it every day, and that there will be some level of consistency, but you got to realize you got to kiss a lot of frogs before
yeah,
one turns into, a sale. And you're right. Some of the sales don't require as much effort, and others, blow up, and you've worked harder on that and have had better sales calls than you ever have, and for whatever reason something
it just falls
changes that
apart.
is out of your control. You know,
Yeah,
we sell names that some of the salespeople started working on 2 years ago, 3 years ago, that work for me right now.
yeah,
And or 4 years ago, and that the company's now in a position to buy it, or they said, what's the price? Okay, that's good, but we got to talk about it. They keep delaying, and then they call and say, okay, I want to buy this. Other situations, the deals blow up, or they don't have the money to buy, or whatever happens, and then I just had a gentleman call me from a name that I sold, I think, like 5 or 6 years ago, that said, hey Jeff, how you been? I'm like, great, how are you? Nice to talk to you. He's like, oh, I moved to a new opportunity and we want to buy this. Can you help us?
yeah,
Oh, absolutely. What are your feelings? What do you think it's going to cost? And I quickly give him like a rundown as to what I think it might cost and who I think the owner is and what I think's happening with it and why I think the name's worth what it's worth. And he's like, okay, send me an agreement. Let's get cooking. And I did. And so, it's a weird business, and I think a lot of it for me is a lot is referrals now from me personally, and for a lot of the salespeople as well, that you can live off of those and do well. But then obviously new business comes in. We pay a lot of money in Google ads, and have sellers that point their names at us too, that kind of create that, that
yeah.
consistency.
Cash
But
flow.
there's also, again, that process, and that you got to stick with in sales, and
Yeah,
you
and
got to
you've been
keep
doing it a
doing it.
long time. It takes nobody wants to hear that something takes years and years to be successful, but that's the reality. And especially in domain investing, it takes a long time to build a base. And that referral you got was based on years of experience and years of relationships, and those will multiply for, you've gotten a point where they keep calling you, or they tell a friend, hey, Jeff is the one who got it, why don't you give him a call? And that just takes a long time to do that. It's in the beginning, for a new person like myself, it's pretty hungry. Like you could go a year without having much income because you just don't have a lot of domains under management. You get, it's hard. It's a hard go in the beginning, but once you get going, then you get going and you're fine.
I think you going out there and launching your own brokerage, though, I think the hardest part, and that's the domain industry
Yeah,
already, right? And understanding valuation, being able to explain it to people, being able to explain the escrow process, being able to explain transfers, being able to overcome objections about domains aren't useful anymore, being able to back them up with legitimate stories.
yeah,
When I first launched this business, my biggest problem was when I told a story about a success I had, I always had to talk about another company.
yeah,
You know what I mean? I couldn't talk about my own because I didn't sell shit yet, right?
yeah,
But you as yourself, as a lone wolf doing it, you can, and being someone who's been a writer in the industry for years and being a contributor to it, what you say has weight, and
yeah,
easily can be backed up, right? And I think you already have that. And when I used to hire brand new salespeople, I would say, if you immerse yourself in the material and you use all of the resources we give you and learn from those around you, in 6 months, you'll be good enough to put yourself in situations that you'll probably get yourself in some trouble, and put yourself in some weird, like, and make some big mistakes, which is great. And then in
yeah,
12 months, you'll be relatively dangerous, and that's when you're really going to start to have like a pipeline that's building, and potential repeat customers, and then also people that you spoke to this month one, that are finally come back with that funding, or they're going to come back with a new offer, or they're going to call you and say, can you help me acquire something else? And that's going to multiply and snowball and snowball and snowball. And then over the years, some of the snowball you don't even realize you have anymore because these are people that might have vanished from your life years ago, or it's a friend who calls you and says, I told so and so about you, he needs you, and now you're in with them. And I think you'll do fine,
Yeah.
and getting going, and it really doesn't take much uh, for you to get a full day's work out of it. Especially, you can supplement with your own inventory of great names when
Yeah,
you're slow. I mean,
that's a great thing is I it's funny, as much as I talk, I generally don't share any of my sales or my purchases. I kind of, but I mean, like, I'm doing fine. Like, I'll make over $250,000 in profit in 2024 is my goal in my own inventory of profit. Now I try and roll that back
yeah,
into mains, but I can live on that. Like, I'm fine. Like, it's
I hope so.
that that's not gonna be a problem. I think, buying and selling. I do say this, taking a percentage of a domain and selling it is great. But what's really great is buying and selling your own domain where you get to keep it all. Like, that's really nice, especially when you have six-figure domains and I do enjoy that part too. It's good negotiating your own when you have to turn to the owner and all you have to do is talk to yourself whether the owner is going to
It
take
also
it or
can get
not.
very emotional for you as well when it becomes
Yeah,
high
but I'm not.
pressure and
I'm in love with nothing. That's the thing is I wouldn't sell my daughter or my wife, but other than that, like I don't. I've never worn a jersey of a player in my life. I would never put another
just a hat,
person's name. Yeah, but
just a
oh,
hat.
that's true. Now I will say Michael Jordan. No, that's true. That's a very ironic. Michael Jordan has been like I lived in North Carolina. Michael Jordan went to North Carolina. We had to move
Uh-huh.
away. I was so disappointed. I moved to Chicago. Michael Jordan gets drafted. So I watched all through grade school or junior high Michael Jordan. Then I moved to Chicago and I go to all his games in 86, 87, 88, 89. I live all the way through the 90s. I go to Alabama. What does he do? He becomes a Birmingham Baron and goes to play baseball right down the road from me.
Did
So
you
I
go
will
watch
say
him?
that. Oh yeah, absolutely. So I
Yeah.
will say
Right.
this man, I have seen Michael Jordan more than any human other than my family. I mean, I've seen him thousands of times. So I will take all that back. You're right. There is one person that like it's just like I grew up with him. Like he's always been there. No matter where I've lived, Michael Jordan has been there. But other than that, like I wouldn't say I'd sell my dog, but you know what I mean? Like my domain
Yeah, I hear
names,
you.
I
Yep.
am not in love with any of that. They are domain names. I'll sell it. I'll sell anything. I sell my car, no problem. If a guy comes on the street and gives me enough for my Bronco, I'll sell it.
You
Like
got.
it doesn't matter. It just
I think
yeah,
in this industry though, I find that there's not many people that can do both. Be great at domain investing and a
yeah,
good domain broker for themselves, right? There's usually people that are
yeah.
really good at building a nice
I
catalog.
think Drew Rosner. I think Drew. I'm good friends with Drew. I really think the world of Drew, and we all have different personalities, but I love it. Like I mean, he's just the kind of guy I hang. I have a lot of friends that are just like him, that are aggressive and go getters. But he's done a good job of having his own portfolio and other people's names, and he is.
I agree.
Um, and he's in the same boat as I said before. Like, it's. I love selling other people's names. I love premium assets or premium assets. I don't care if they're mine or
Yep.
yours, but I'd rather they be
Hmm.
mine. I'd rather
Yeah,
they
of
be
course.
mine. So
Yeah.
who wouldn't? So he's very realistic, and so I appreciate that. And so it is kind of my business model is you have to respect your clients. Like you have to respect their names, and you can't push your names in front of them. You have to objectively somehow figure out what's best for your client, and you can't say my name is best. It may be, but fortunately, if your quality is good enough, you're not putting junk in front of them, right? Like if I put a great four letter or something, I'm not going to have anything. But if you have some two letters and one words, like that's a little different. He has good stuff to
I,
put in
I
front
I
of them.
think the thing is that if I had this happen when we were buying our house,
Yeah,
we had a great realtor, a nice woman. We were looking to buy a house in Florida. She goes, I have an opportunity for you, but I need to tell you up front. There's a catch. And I was like, okay, let's go. Does it come with a timeshare I got to buy, or like,
yeah,
what's this ridiculous catch? She goes, the owner of the house is a good friend of mine, and she's
Yeah.
my neighbor.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so what? And she's like, well, you're going to live next to me, and it's a good friend of mine. So, I'm letting you know ahead of time that there is a relationship between myself
Yeah.
and the owner of this house. And the
Which
house
she's
wasn't
required
listed
to
yet.
by law.
But she disclosed it. And I feel that even though we're not required by law, that if there was a name that I felt someone who hired me to help them find a name was one of mine that I thought they could benefit from, I would say, I don't usually do this, but based on what you said, this is
Yeah.
a domain that I own or my company owns or my wife owns, and I think it fits. And this is the price that I want for it. If you don't like it, I'm never going to talk about it again.
Yeah.
That's it. Right? And as
Yeah.
long as you do that, I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But
No,
if you're
I
if
think
you're
it's
then
much more
putting five
difficult.
more they don't know about, geez, that
But
are
I
yours.
think
That's
on homes, I've never understood how they can represent the buy and the sell side. Like it's that's tough. Like when a real estate agent has a home and they're representing the seller and the buyer, there's a huge conflict of interest in getting to the best price. Um,
I
I
think the thing
think.
is a lot of realtors I've met in the last few years, there's some great realtors that I've met and have worked with, but in other cases, some are just saying, okay, what do you want to offer? And they just put it on the offer sheet and just email it. Like there isn't
The
the negotiating
negotiation
going
part.
on as much as it used to be and as
That is
much. And I
true. I
think
mean, the
because the
market is
market
a
is
little
so hot,
different.
yeah, the
Yeah.
market has been so hot that there's no, like, if you really wanted to put the screws to somebody, you can't, because then they just have another 5 families come in and buy the house and you're out.
But
So
but in like around here, you can still negotiate, and it's hard. My realtor can't give me they can't even tell me like if I want to offer a normal realtor, if it's just the buy side, they would say, I think we could go in and do this, but they can't do that because they know what the other side is, so they can't really say anything. They really can
yeah,
just say,
that's
what
true.
do you
So then
want to
they're
offer?
useless. Then
There's
it's
no point
useless,
in
right?
having. So
Pointless.
if I have
Yeah,
if I have somebody on the sell side, I get a lawyer for the buy side. That's what I
yeah,
do. I can't have it as the same side, and they want both sides because they commission on both. But so I found that's a conflict of interest because they can't help me at all on the buy side. They can show me houses, but we have Zillow. We have so many tools now. I don't need to drive around with Maggie in her 4-door and have her show
with
me the
Maggie.
houses. Like I don't. It doesn't have to happen. Like I can virtually look at most of the houses and we'll go do a walkthrough after I've chosen through. Before I had to go through 10 houses. I don't have to go through 10. Maggie can just show me the last house that I'm interested in. But yeah, it is interesting,
Yeah,
and,
and
and these are all the things that we're getting better at, and the ethical choices. That's all part of what we do, right? And some are better at it than others. But there's people that I respect. Yourself. Everybody. We don't always get to all talk, but we all know who each other are. If you've been doing it this long, you have to be doing something right, right? Like people that have been doing it for decades can't be completely corrupt and immoral. They tend to
yeah,
fade out
I
and not get as
agree.
much
I think
business.
no, I agree, and I've done co-brokerage deals with Drew. Drew actually grew up about 40 minutes from where I grew up, and I know a couple of his friends that he grew up with, like in
Oh, that's so
similar
great.
circles of people. So it's kind
Small
of
world.
strange that, I know a guy that used to be in the fish business with Drew. So,
Yeah.
him and I have had some calls where we're negotiating with each other and teasing each other and making fun of each other and having some laughs. And I like him a lot. I think he's a great guy. I
Yeah.
think he's extremely talented salesperson. And you're right. He's one of those people that can be the investor and can be the broker. Me, on the other hand, I've sat and I've read lists like yours, and I'm bored to tears, and I can't stand sitting there and doing it every
Yeah.
morning and sitting in an auction and making those bids every day and then waiting for them to end or hemming and hawing or should I make another bid. And if I were to go and become serious about it, I would probably automate it a bit more, where I would put in the highest bid, and if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't, and
Yeah.
just
You'll
move
use an
on.
API. All the,
Yeah,
like
all day.
that hike that we took in Vegas, there was a hike during the conference, and I'm walking with Mike Ambrose, who is one of the founders of .xyz, him and Daniel Nagari. And Mike is generally just one hike, I can see how nice he is. I'm with Aaron Wilkin, Mike Ambrose, and Stephen Kennedy. Literally three of the nicest guys in all the industry.
Well, they're all three great guys, and they're all brilliant.
They're all so smart. Like, it was an honor to walk and hike for 4 hours. And I can't think of a better business meeting than 4 hours up a mountain, right? Like, you're just talking, looking ahead. You don't have to worry about eye contact. Like, I don't always make great eye contact. And so this is a perfect situation where I need to watch my feet anyway. So, talking to those guys, and I will say there's something about having Stephen Kennedy sell 6 names on the 4-hour hike. Like, you can hear his email, pring, selling. And Mike is 11. Mike has 500,000 or more names, and Stephen has, I don't know, 100,000 or something. But there is something about cash flow of having those guys sell 6 names during that process that you're like, man, I would love to have that. But I also know how hard they worked, and how, like, Steven started with 1 or 2 names and built that all over since I started. He was in high school when I started. So I respect the hell out of all those guys, because I know they didn't all start with that. They all started with nothing and built that through rolling it and investing and learning their skill set. And I appreciate that model too. So that's why when you ask me what I want to do, I appreciate all the models of making money in domain investing. And I'll probably explore all of them as part of what I do. I just want to sell domain names. That's what it comes down to. Mine, yours, whatever it is. I love domain names. I love the business. But I also like crypto and blockchain. Like, I understand that part of technology too. That technology is very important, and there's a lot of opportunity there. So I incorporate that. I also, understand the value, like you said, of the tools. And at DSAD we look like a simple, boring website, but Travis on the back end has so many tools and links, and he's built all these things, custom coding, so that we can do things quicker and faster. That's a very important part of all we do. Every domain investor who has anything has APIs and tools built out for them to make their day more managed, quicker, and more efficient. And that's...
Well, yeah, you can do it all manually. You'll lose your mind day after day after day. And by the time it's time to evaluate the names, you're already tired and over it, And then there's also those that have the bots that are just pretty much doing all the bidding as well, right? So
yeah. Well, and that's what the API is. You go ahead and put all your information up ahead of time, and your bot slowly puts it to bid. So it's that's what APIs are all about. You should, like, if you're in the domain business, you really have to have a bot doing your work. We joke about Yanni's bot, like, always being honest, but we all know, I can tell the Huge Domains bot, I can tell Steven's bot, I can tell everybody's bot, like, and I also know, like, what the ranges are. Like, the average acquisition for me is $380. Like, I know that's what it is, and then I talk to other people, and that's about it. By the time you do your closeouts and then your larger price names, when you average it, I can tell the people listening to this, if you participate daily on the expired auctions and you get all kinds of names, you're gonna average $380 to $420 a domain if you're at all ranges. So that's what I expect. If you're gonna put 1,000 names, you want to add 1,000 names this year, expect to spend $400,000 if you're gonna be in that game. So I mean, that's a big
investment, and that's a lot of choices, and then you get to carry
I'm gonna hand register. If you're gonna hand register, you're not gonna have as good a quality of names. You have to be a mix of certain type of names that sell, and that is all over the board. And they're more expensive every day, right? Like, names that were for $50 go for $500. It's a different ball game. I mean, I bought Winterline, Winterline. That name would have cost me a couple $100, just as a cool brand. It was $1,000. It cost me $1,000 to add Winterline. I just picked it up at NameJet. So, those are the.
What do you like about Winterline so much?
Winterline is just I like to buy names that are 2 known, easy to spell words that make a good brand. It's a good brandable type name. It'll sell for $8,900 or something, and it exudes like outdoors and clothing, and it could be technology. Those are just the kind of names that I like to add. Those kind of brands. Now, am I going to reach out and outbound that to somebody? No. That's going to be a decision where somebody's coming up with a naming. to do that. There's no companies named that. Like, I'm not going onto Crunchbase and finding Winterline. That's what we all do. When we're looking for it, we look for existing. But if you go and there's a Crunchbase list of 30 people that have the name in a .com, you're not spending $1,000 to get that name. It's not going to be $1,000 domain.
No.
So it's all relative when it comes down to it. So, and then you have people like Ike who've been doing things like that Josh Eisenhower that we talked about. You know, he's up to whatever, 10 or 15,000 names when he was buying those when they were $100 and $50. And now he's killing it. Now he's selling lots of those names. So it's all relative. You can still make a lot of money entering it. It just costs more money to enter. So that's the thing.
Yeah, and I know another investor that sold his portfolio to GoDaddy. I'll keep his name confidential, but he said the majority of his portfolio he bought in GoDaddy closeouts.
Yeah,
and he said it was funny to sell a lot of it back to GoDaddy. He had a good laugh about that. They could have kept them all for themselves.
It's an appreciating asset, right? That's what it is.
Yeah.
Domains are appreciating asset. And so far we have proven that 100% that .coms that are solid, quote, however you determine that, have been appreciating. And definitely in the auctions, no doubt about that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, how can people get a hold of you? I know they can go to dsad.com, but how else can they get a hold of you if they have any questions?
I just have I have domains. Well, Twitter's a good one. I just have my name. It's at Shane Cultra. I have I'm pretty present there. And then you're welcome to email me. I get plenty of email, domainshane@gmail. I keep it at a nice, easy Gmail for all that. I opened up my DMs on Twitter. I don't know if I should have or not, but I got 100 DMs yesterday, just people asking about names. And I will say this, a person asked me about a name that he had, and I said, it's not a good name. It's a matter of fact, it's a trademarked name. And I said, you just can't have trademarks. And he said, well, what about this? And it had an offer from GoDaddy for $1,000. And I go, oh, well, I would definitely not counter too much. You're playing with fire. It's a trademark. I highly don't recommend it. He said, well, okay, let's pretend it's not a trademark. What would you do? And I'm like, well, in that quality, I'd probably come back at 2,500. He's like, let me think about it. I'm not exaggerating. 30 seconds later, he goes, I just got this email. It's 10 minutes after they're offering $4,000. I'm like, what's the span? He goes, 10 minutes. And I said, this is trademarked, but it is a big trademark. So I said, all right, this is fire. Like, I would say just take it normally. This is not how domains work. You shouldn't do it at all. But just put $10,000 in and just go. And 3 seconds later, taken. We accepted. It's more than we want to pay, $10,000. So in the course of like 8-minute DM that I never would have owned for a name that I thought was horrible and unethical when it comes to squatting, he sold for $10,000. But
I'll bet you if you track that name, I'll bet you in the next week or so, you're going to see a marketing campaign with that on it somewhere, or there's going to be something on it.
This one is so bad. I cannot imagine. I'll tell you after the show. There's no way. It's a protection name. There's no doubt about it.
Oh, really?
It's yeah, but there's no way.
There's some timing like that. They know they could file and win, right?
Yeah,
or they could have
100%.
just sent a cease and desist and probably could have gotten the name. But I think them getting it quickly was more important than getting it the other way.
Exactly.
I always felt, and talking to John Berryhill, that like between $3,000 and $5,000 is the magic number because that's what it costs to file. Exactly. But it's 100% chance of a win if you sell it to them for $3,000 or $5,000, right? Yeah. And they don't have to wait 2 months to get the name, and it's just done.
It's just easier for them, But it's not a business
making that
model.
offer makes sense.
It's not. I told him. He goes, "Oh, I should do this for a lot of names." I go, "Don't take this money and enjoy the luck of the draw." But this is not a business model. Take the money if you want to.
No, it's not a business model.
Yeah. So, but the DMs did make it more interesting. Pardon me?
Is he in the United States?
I don't know. He didn't have a U or a Z instead of an S kind of thing. So I don't know because it was during the day. But I do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and his English was fine. So I'm not quite sure. But the DMs did get a little overwhelming. But I do like talking domains to a point. Like, it gets to be a little bit much with all the offers. But every once in a while something will come through where you'll be able to have an interesting conversation and learn more and make, people don't forget when you help them, right? I mean, that'll kind of tie this all up. When you If you do everything you do just to make money, life's gonna not be too good. So if you help somebody and you can take 5 minutes of your day, you can't do it for everybody, but I do feel like just answering that email, that guy that made $10,000, he won't forget me. Like he will, maybe he
No
becomes a
way.
big
You're part of
company
the
owner.
story now. Yeah,
Yeah.
that
So
hopefully the life changing amount of money for him.
yeah, yeah. So that was worth it for me. So all those other 99 DMs that kind of sucked, we're good now. Like it made it worth it. So that's why I appreciate being on here and you giving me a voice, and Drew on Domain Sherpa letting me be on that. I truly enjoy that. I love talking about domains and being part of it. And I think we're all really fortunate that the houses that we have, or the little things that we have, they've been purchased through domains. That's crazy. It's just amazing. When you tell somebody that the things I have are made from selling domains, only we truly understand what that is and how crazy that is. So
It is, and I'm lucky. Like all of my wealth, all of the things I have are really from domains. I
yeah,
mean, I've been doing this for 14 years now. So the money I had before was a lot less than what I have now. So I would say the percentages are much smaller. And yeah,
yeah,
I'm definitely
yeah. It's
grateful for what
crazy.
this industry has done.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yeah,
it's. I
and
think I
then
think it's great.
yeah. All right, Shane. Well, hey,
Yeah,
thanks for coming on. I
yeah.
appreciate it. It's been a lot of fun. We've covered a lot of material. I can't believe it's been an hour and 40 minutes. I don't
I
know if people
know.
are going to
Yeah,
last
I know. I tend to run
listening to
long. Sorry about that, everybody. You can cut
it.
it
That's
into a couple
okay.
runs. Yeah.
No, that's great. And we'll definitely have you on again. And I think it'll be fun to potentially have some others on at the same time. Brooke wanted to come on. We were joking
Yeah, I
that she's
love
kind of like
Brooke. Yeah,
my Robin. She's like my Robin Quivers to add some more balance to the conversation. So maybe she'll come on and we'll have you on again in the near future. So
100%.
thanks again, and until
Yeah.
next time,
All right.
we'll
Thanks
talk to you
again.
soon.